A former slot technician just revealed something about jackpots that casinos have been hiding for decades. And what he told me completely changed everything I thought I knew about how these machines actually work. This isn't speculation or theory. This is documented information from someone who spent 12 years programming and maintaining slot machines at three major Las Vegas casinos. And according to him, almost everything players believe about jackpots is deliberately designed to be misunderstood. What you're about to learn could fundamentally change how you think about gambling. Because the truth is, casinos have built an entire system around making sure you never fully understand how jackpots really operate. The information I'm sharing today comes from internal documents, former employee testimonies, and industry reports that casinos definitely don't want going public. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what insiders know, and that knowledge could save you thousands of dollars. Let me start with something that's going to sound obvious, but has implications most players never consider. According to former slot technicians, jackpots are determined the exact moment you press the spin button. Not when the reel stops spinning, not when the animation finishes. The instant your finger touches that button, the random number generator inside the machine has already decided whether you won or lost. The spinning reels you're watching, that's pure theater. Those symbols cascading down the screen are just animated graphics showing you a result that was locked in microseconds ago. Here's why this matters more than you might think. The random number generator, or RNG, is cycling through thousands of number combinations every single second, even when nobody's playing the machine. According to documentation from former technicians, these systems process anywhere from 500 to several thousand combinations per second, depending on the machine model. The moment you hit that button, the RNG stops on whatever combination it had reached at that precise millisecond, and that combination corresponds to specific symbols on the reels. The game's software then displays those symbols using the spinning animation, but the outcome was already determined before the first reel even started moving. Former employees report that players frequently develop elaborate systems based on timing their button presses, believing they can somehow influence the outcome by spinning at specific moments or stopping the reels manually. There's a case documented by a former floor supervisor about a regular customer named Mike who was convinced he'd discovered a pattern. He'd watch machines for 20 or 30 minutes, timing other players' spins on his phone, believing he could identify optimal moments to play based on how long it had been since the last significant payout. According to the supervisor's account, Mike came to the casino 4 or 5 times a week for nearly 8 months following this system. He kept meticulous notes in a spiral notebook, tracking times, bet amounts, and results. Over those 8 months, he lost approximately $12,000, never understanding that his elaborate timing system was completely meaningless because each spin's outcome was already predetermined by an RNG that couldn't be timed or predicted. But here's what makes this particularly manipulative, according to former game designers. Casinos could easily program machines to display results instantly. The technology exists to show you immediately whether you won or lost. Instead, they deliberately use spinning reel animations that take 3 to 5 seconds to complete. Why now? Because those few seconds of anticipation trigger dopamine release in your brain. Those moments watching the reel spin, hoping the right symbols line up, create the psychological engagement that keeps you playing. The suspense is manufactured. It's not a natural part of how the machine operates. It's pure psychological manipulation designed to make losing feel more like entertainment and to make you want to press that button again. But if you think that's surprising, wait until you hear about what really happens with the term jackpot itself, because according to former casino marketing directors, most of what players call jackpots aren't actually jackpots at all. This is where the manipulation gets even more sophisticated. The casino industry has deliberately blurred the terminology around jackpots to make wins seem more significant than they actually are. And internal documents from former employees reveal exactly how this linguistic trick works. Let me break down what insiders say about jackpot classifications. There are progressive jackpots, which are legitimate pooled prizes that increase as players bet. There are fixed jackpots, which are set prize amounts that don't change. And then there are what the industry internally calls promotional jackpots, which is basically marketing language for any win the casino wants to make seem important. According to former marketing managers, casino advertising teams deliberately use the word jackpot for wins that are just multipliers of your bet amount, sometimes as low as 20 times what you wagered. Former employees report that player services representatives are specifically trained to use jackpot terminology loosely. If you win anything that triggers lights and sounds, staff will often congratulate you on your jackpot, regardless of whether it's an actual progressive pool or just a standard bonus game payout. Here's a specific case that illustrates this perfectly. A woman playing at a Las Vegas Strip casino hit what the machine displayed as a grand jackpot with flashing lights, bells, and a digital celebration animation. She immediately called over a floor attendant, excited about what she assumed was a major win. According to the floor supervisor who handled the situation, the woman genuinely believed she'd won $50,000 based on how the machine presented the win and because the display used the word jackpot prominently. The actual payout was $1,200. It was a fixed prize, not a progressive, and represented exactly 1,000 times her $1.20 bet, which sounds impressive until you realize that's the top fixed prize the machine offers and hits with relative frequency compared to true progressive jackpots. Internal marketing documents that former managers have described show that casinos explicitly categorize different tiers of wins using jackpot language. They'll have mini jackpots, minor jackpots, major jackpots, and grand jackpots displayed on the same machine. But according to gaming regulations reports, only a small percentage of these are actually connected to progressive pools. The rest are just fixed amounts or multipliers dressed up with impressive terminology. Former compliance officers estimate that only about 3 to 5% of advertised jackpots in a typical casino are genuine progressive jackpots, where the prize pool actually grows with player contributions. The remaining 95 to 97% are fixed prizes, bonus game payouts, or standard wins that casinos have simply chosen to label with jackpot terminology for marketing purposes. Here's the emotional manipulation aspect that former employees say they found particularly troubling. By using jackpot language for relatively small wins, casinos create an association in players' minds between the excitement of jackpot terminology and outcomes that are actually quite common. You might hear bells and see jackpot displayed on screen 5 or 6 times during a session, winning amounts like $40 or $80 on $5 bets. This conditions you to feel like jackpots are attainable and frequent, making you more likely to chase the genuine progressive jackpots that have astronomically worse odds. But the way casinos actually control when these real jackpots hit is even more disturbing than the terminology games. And what former slot directors reveal about programmed hit frequencies is something most players have never considered. Every single slot machine in every casino operates according to a document that most players don't even know exists. It's called a PAR sheet, short for Probability Accounting Report, and according to former slot directors, these documents contain the complete mathematical blueprint for exactly how often a machine will hit its jackpot. These aren't estimates or averages. These are precise program frequencies determined before the machine ever reaches a casino floor. And former employees say that understanding PAR sheets completely destroys the most common myth in gambling, that a machine becomes due to hit after a long losing streak. Here's what former slot technicians reveal about how these frequencies actually work. Every machine is programmed with specific hit rates for every prize level. A penny slot machine's major jackpot might be programmed to hit once every 1.2 million spins on average. A dollar denomination machine's grand jackpot might be set to trigger once every 300,000 spins. These numbers aren't random. They're carefully calculated by game mathematicians to ensure the casino maintains its profit margin while still offering prizes large enough to keep players interested. According to former game designers, manufacturers spend months testing different hit frequency combinations to find the optimal balance between player engagement and casino profitability. What makes this particularly important is that each spin is completely independent. The RNG doesn't know or care that the jackpot hasn't hit in 1 million spins. It doesn't track how long it's been since the last major payout. Every single spin has exactly the same odds as the previous spin and the next spin. The 1 in 1.2 million odds don't get better because you've played through 500,000 losing spins. Former employees report that this is the single most misunderstood aspect of slot machine mathematics. And casinos do absolutely nothing to correct this misunderstanding because players who believe in the due-to-hit theory stay at machines much longer than players who understand independence of trials. There's a case that perfectly illustrates how devastating this misunderstanding can be. A former cocktail waitress named Janet worked at a regional casino in Mississippi for 6 years, and she documented a situation involving a regular customer who became convinced a particular Buffalo Grand machine was due to hit its major progressive. According to her account, this man had been tracking the machine for 3 weeks, noting that it hadn't awarded its top prize in what he calculated was an unusually long time. He started playing it exclusively, sometimes arriving when the casino opened and staying for 8 or 9 hour sessions. Janet watched him go through approximately $8,000 over 2 months, constantly telling staff that the machine had to hit soon because it was overdue. The machine did eventually hit its major jackpot, but not for him. Another player sat down 20 minutes after he'd finally left one evening and won it on her fourth spin. Internal casino documents that former slot managers described show that casinos actually track jackpot frequencies monthly and compare them to the programmed par sheet specifications. If a machine is hitting too frequently, they'll remove it or adjust the denomination. If it's hitting less frequently than expected, they monitor it but rarely intervene because an underperforming jackpot machine is more profitable. Former compliance directors report that these monthly analyses are standard practice at every major casino corporation, but this data is never shared with players, and par sheets themselves are considered confidential, proprietary information in most jurisdictions. Here's the psychological manipulation that former game designers admit was deliberately engineered into slot machine programming. Near-miss combinations are weighted to appear far more frequently than actual jackpots. If a machine is programmed to hit its jackpot once every 500,000 spins, it might be programmed to show a near miss, where jackpot symbols appear just above or below the pay line once every 2,000 spins. According to former technicians, this creates the illusion that jackpots hit more frequently than they actually do. Players see those symbols appearing regularly adjacent to the pay line and interpret that as evidence that the jackpot is attainable, that they're getting close, that the machine is ready to pay. The mathematics tell a completely different story. Former Nevada Gaming Commission analysts have documented cases where players filed complaints believing machines were malfunctioning because jackpot symbols appeared near the pay line so frequently, yet never actually landed on it. In every investigated case, the machines were operating exactly as programmed. Those near misses weren't evidence of a malfunction. They were evidence of the program working precisely as designed to create the psychological impression of almost winning. And speaking of programming, what I'm about to tell you about how progressive jackpots can be reset is going to fundamentally change how you think about chasing those massive prize pools. Casinos can legally reset progressive jackpots without anyone actually winning them. And according to former compliance officers, this happens far more often than players realize. Gaming regulations in most jurisdictions allow casinos to reset progressive meters under specific conditions: machine malfunctions, equipment relocations, software updates, and what the industry calls reseating policies. The specific mechanisms vary by state and tribal gaming compact, but the fundamental reality is the same. That progressive jackpot you've been watching climb for weeks can disappear overnight and be reset to its base amount. And in many cases, the casino has no legal obligation to inform players that it happened. Here's a specific example that former Atlantic City casino managers have described. A bank of linked progressive machines displayed a major jackpot that had grown to $127,000. The casino decided to relocate these machines to a different section of the floor as part of a layout redesign. According to internal policies, this relocation constituted a qualifying event for a progressive reset. The casino filed the appropriate paperwork with the State Gaming Commission, received approval, move the machines, and reset the progressive to its base amount of $10,000. Players who had been regularly playing these machines, specifically because they were tracking that $127,000 jackpot arrived to find it had vanished. Several filed complaints. According to former compliance staff, every complaint was rejected because the reset was conducted according to regulation. A former compliance officer who worked at multiple casino properties over 15 years reports witnessing 3 separate progressive resets during his tenure. In 2 cases, the resets were due to what the casino classified as technical errors in the meter increment programming. In the 3rd case, the reset occurred when the casino replaced older machines with newer models, but wanted to maintain the progressive network. In none of these 3 cases did the casino proactively notify players. The progressive simply appeared at its base level the next day, and according to this former officer, casual players typically assumed someone had won it and the pool was starting over. The financial motivation behind these resets becomes clear when you understand how progressives work from the casino's accounting perspective. Every progressive jackpot represents a liability on the casino's books. The higher that jackpot grows, the larger the liability. According to former casino financial managers, there are circumstances where paying out the progressive through a reset and reseeding process is more financially advantageous than waiting for a legitimate win, particularly if the machine has technical issues or if the casino wants to discontinue that specific game. Industry estimates from former managers suggest that somewhere between 2 and 4% of progressive jackpots are reset rather than won, though exact figures are impossible to verify because casinos don't publicize this data. But if you think that's manipulative, wait until you hear about must-hit by progressives. Because the way these machines are programmed reveals something that advantaged players have known for years, but that casinos definitely don't want casual players to understand. Must-hit by progressives represent one of the most revealing examples of how slot machine programming actually works. And according to former slot technicians, these machines aren't nearly as random as casinos want you to believe. A must-hit by progressive displays a jackpot amount with a maximum threshold, something like must-hit by $500 or must-hit by $10,000. The marketing implies that once the progressive reaches that amount, it has to pay out. What former game designers reveal is that these machines are programmed with predetermined hit ranges that make the final stretch dramatically more likely to pay than the early stages. And professional advantage players have been quietly exploiting this mathematical reality for years while casual players waste money during the low probability phases. Here's how the programming actually works, according to former technicians. When a must-hit by progressive is installed or reset, the machine's software randomly selects a specific hit point within the allowable range. So a must-hit by $500 progressive might randomly select $473.42 as its actual trigger point during that cycle. The progressive meter will increment with each bet until it reaches that predetermined amount, at which point the next spin that qualifies will award the jackpot. This sounds random, and technically the initial selection of the hit point is random. But here's what former slot mathematicians reveal about how these ranges are actually distributed. According to internal documentation that former slot managers have described, must-hit by progressives are programmed so that once the meter reaches approximately 80% of the maximum threshold, the hit probability increases dramatically. Analysis from advantage players who've tracked thousands of must-hit by outcomes shows that roughly 73% of these progressives trigger in the final 10% of their range. A must-hit by $500 progressive will statistically hit between $450 and $500 nearly 3/4 of the time. The mathematical reason relates to how the random number selection is weighted within the possible range. But the practical implication is clear. Playing a must-hit by progressive when it's at $150 is essentially burning money, while playing that same progressive at $460 offers dramatically better value. Professional advantage gambling teams understand this mathematical reality and actively hunt must-hit by progressives that are approaching their thresholds. There's a documented case of a 3-person team that operated in Oklahoma and Louisiana casinos for approximately 14 months, specifically targeting must-hit by machines. According to reports from former casino surveillance directors who tracked this team, They would enter a casino, scan the floor for must-hit by progressives in the favorable zone, typically above 85% of maximum, and then play those machines exclusively until the jackpot hit. Over 14 months, this team generated approximately $40,000 in profit before several casino chains identified their pattern and asked them to leave. The team wasn't cheating. They weren't manipulating anything. They were simply understanding the mathematics better than casual players and positioning themselves in the high probability segments of the progressive cycle. Casinos have responded to this advantage play by implementing countermeasures. According to former slot operations managers, many properties now use multiple smaller must-hit by progressives instead of larger single pools, specifically to prevent advantage players from camping machines in profitable ranges. Instead of one must-hit by $500 progressive, a casino might install 5 must-hit by $100 progressives on the same bank of machines. The smaller denominational ranges make advantage play less profitable because the absolute dollar value of the edge decreases, even though the percentage advantage remains similar. Other casinos have implemented rules prohibiting extended play on must-hit by machines when they're near threshold, though enforcing such rules without appearing to discriminate against skilled players presents legal challenges. Before I reveal how wide-area progressives compare to lottery odds, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. The information I'm sharing comes from years of research and conversations with former casino employees who want players to understand how these systems really work. Let me know in the comments, have you ever won a jackpot? And if so, how much was it and which machine were you playing? I read every comment, and your experiences help other viewers understand the reality of casino gambling. Because what I'm about to tell you about Megabucks, Wheel of Fortune progressives, and other wide-area network jackpots is something former casino mathematicians say they felt guilty not being able to tell players directly. Wide-area progressive jackpots, the machines with those massive multi-million-dollar prizes you see advertised, have odds that are substantially worse than most state lottery games. And according to a former gaming mathematician who worked for a major slot manufacturer, the comparison should fundamentally change how players think about these machines. Megabucks, probably the most famous wide-area progressive in Las Vegas, has odds of winning the grand jackpot of approximately 1 in 49 million. To put that in perspective, your odds of winning a Powerball jackpot are 1 in 292 million, which is worse, but Powerball offers numerous smaller prize tiers with significantly better odds. A Megabucks machine offers essentially nothing between small base game wins and the multi-million-dollar grand prize. The whole percentage on wide-area progressives reveals exactly how unfavorable these machines are for players. According to former casino operations managers, wide-area progressives typically hold between 11 and 15% of all money wagered, which is substantially higher than the standard slot machines that might hold 7 to 9%. This means that for every $100 you put into a Megabucks or Wheel of Fortune progressive machine, the combination of the casino's take and the progressive contribution leaves you with $85 to $89 in expected return compared to $91 to $93 on better-paying standard machines. You're paying a significant premium for access to that massive jackpot, and the mathematics clearly show that premium isn't justified by the odds of actually winning. Here's a specific case that illustrates the human cost of chasing wide-area progressives. A woman in her mid-50s received a $35,000 inheritance when her aunt passed away. According to a former casino host who knew her, she had always dreamed of winning a major Megabucks jackpot and decided to dedicate her inheritance to pursuing that goal. Over approximately 22 months, she made regular trips to Las Vegas, staying in casino hotels and playing Megabucks machines almost exclusively. She tracked her play in a journal, convinced that her persistence would eventually pay off. Former employees who interacted with her regularly report that she genuinely believed she was investing in her future, that hitting that jackpot would transform her retirement prospects. After 22 months, she had depleted the entire $35,000 inheritance and had won nothing larger than an $800 payout. The mathematics were clear from the beginning. At $3 per spin, the expected value of her play meant she was statistically destined to lose. But the visible jackpot counterclimbing past $10 or $12 million created an illusion of attainability that the actual odds never supported. Former slot floor employees report being explicitly trained never to discuss actual odds when players ask about wide area progressives. The standard response taught in training is to redirect to excitement about the jackpot size or to mention recent winners without providing any mathematical context. Act 4 Revelation. Number 7. Casinos intentionally delay large jackpot payments, hoping you'll gamble your winnings back before you leave the property. According to former slot supervisors, this isn't coincidental inefficiency or bureaucratic necessity. This is deliberate strategy discussed in management meetings and embedded in staff training protocols. And the documentation that former employees have shared reveals exactly how this psychological manipulation works. When you hit a jackpot over a certain threshold, typically around $1,200 in most jurisdictions, because that's the IRS reporting requirement, you can't just collect your money and move. The machine locks. A slot attendant must verify the win, a floor supervisor must approve it, paperwork must be completed, tax forms must be filed. And according to former slot operations managers, every single one of these steps takes longer than necessary by design. A former slot floor supervisor who worked at 2 major Las Vegas Strip properties for 8 years stated explicitly that managers instructed staff to take their time with jackpot processing, particularly during peak hours on Friday and Saturday nights when the casino floor was most active and players were most likely to continue gambling. The actual verification process, according to former compliance officers, requires approximately 10 to 15 minutes when conducted efficiently. You need to confirm the player's identity, verify that the machine legitimacy triggered the jackpot rather than malfunctioning, complete a W-2G tax form, and process the payment. That's the technical requirement. The reality former employees describe is dramatically different. Jackpots exceeding $10,000 routinely take 45 to 90 minutes to process. And according to internal training documents that former managers have described, this extended timeline serves a specific purpose: keeping the winner on the casino floor in an emotionally elevated state while surrounded by gambling opportunities. Here's how the psychology works, according to former casino hosts and player development managers. Someone who just won $15,000 or $25,000 is experiencing an enormous dopamine rush. They're excited, energized, feeling lucky, and according to behavioral psychology research that casinos absolutely understand and exploit, they're in a mental state where money feels less valuable than it did an hour earlier. That $25,000 they just won doesn't feel like $25,000 of hard-earned money they need to protect. It feels like house money, like a windfall, like gambling capital. Casinos know this, and the deliberate delay in payment processing is designed to maximize the probability that winners will gamble away a portion of their jackpot before they leave the property. During the waiting period, former employees report that casino staff follow specific protocols designed to keep winners engaged and comfortable. A cocktail waitress will appear offering free drinks, congratulating the winner. A floor supervisor will spend time chatting, asking about their experience, building rapport. The slot attendant processing the paperwork will work slowly, double-checking details that don't need verification, taking frequent breaks to consult with supervisors. Meanwhile, according to former surveillance room operators, cameras are tracking the winner's behavior. If they wander to other machines and start playing while waiting for their payout, that information gets noted in their player profile for future marketing purposes. The statistical impact of this strategy is documented in internal casino reports that former revenue managers have described. Analysis suggests that between 12 and 18% of jackpot winners gamble away at least 20% of their winnings before leaving the casino on the day they won. For jackpots in the $15,000 to $30,000 range, this represents significant recapture of money the casino just paid out. A specific example illustrates this perfectly. A man won $25,000 on a Wheel of Fortune machine at a casino on the Las Vegas Strip. According to the slot supervisor who processed his jackpot, the verification and payment process took 75 minutes. During that time, the man played video poker at a nearby bar, had several cocktails, and celebrated with other players who congratulated him. By the time he received his $25,000 payout, he had lost approximately $4,000 at the video poker machine. He didn't view this as losing $4,000 of his own money. He viewed it as winning $21,000 instead of $25,000, which psychologically felt completely acceptable given his elevated emotional state. The environmental design of casino floors deliberately supports this recapture strategy. According to former casino architects and floor planners, jackpot processing areas are never located near exits. They're positioned deep within the gaming floor, surrounded by active machines, with multiple gambling opportunities between the jackpot location and any casino exit. Former slot operations directors confirm that these placement decisions are absolutely intentional. Winners must navigate through dozens or hundreds of active slot machines to leave the property, and every one of those machines represents an opportunity for the casino to recapture some portion of the jackpot they just paid. A former pit boss who attended monthly management meetings at a major casino corporation property reports that these meetings explicitly included discussion of winner retention strategies. Managers shared data on what percentage of jackpot winners returned money to the casino before leaving, which staff members were most effective at keeping winners engaged during processing delays, and which environmental factors correlated with higher recapture rates. According to this former pit boss, no one in these meetings ever used language suggesting they were manipulating winners, but the strategic intent was absolutely clear to everyone in the room. The goal was maximizing the time between jackpot win and winner departure, and maximizing the likelihood that winners would continue gambling during that extended time frame. Casino executives, when questioned about payment processing delays, consistently cite fraud prevention and regulatory compliance as justification. They'll explain that verification procedures are necessary to ensure machine integrity, that tax documentation requires careful completion, that large cash transactions demand security protocols. Former compliance officers acknowledge that these concerns are legitimate, but insist the actual verification process requires a fraction of the time casinos typically take. A former compliance director stated that actual fraud verification on a standard slot machine jackpot takes approximately 8 to 12 minutes when conducted properly. Everything beyond that time frame serves purposes other than fraud prevention. And what makes this jackpot payment delay even worse is what casinos do with the information they collect about jackpot winners. Because according to former marketing directors, hitting a jackpot marks you as a high-value target for casino marketing campaigns that will pursue you for years, using your own winning experience as psychological leverage to bring you back and extract far more money than you ever won. Revelation number 8. Every casino tracks jackpot winners in sophisticated customer relationship management systems and targets them with specialized marketing campaigns. Because winners have statistically proven higher lifetime value than average players. The moment you provide identification to claim a jackpot, you enter a database that will categorize, analyze, and target you for years. And the level of detail in these player profiles is something most winners never imagine. Every significant jackpot winner receives an entry in the casino's CRM system that flags them as a priority marketing target. According to former marketing directors who manage these databases, jackpot winners get coded differently than regular players because they've demonstrated something casinos consider extremely valuable: the willingness to gamble significant amounts of money. Someone who won a $15,000 jackpot necessarily spent substantial time and money at that machine before winning. That investment level marks them as a player worth pursuing aggressively, and the marketing systems reflect that priority. The specific tactics former casino marketing managers describe are remarkably sophisticated. Jackpot winners begin receiving increased direct mail, typically within 2 weeks of their win. These aren't generic promotional offers. According to former marketing coordinators, the mailers reference the win specifically, congratulating the player and suggesting they return to recreate that lucky experience. The frequency and value of offers increase substantially. A player who previously received monthly mailers might start receiving weekly or twice-weekly promotions. Free play offers increase. Room comp offers improve. Invitations to VIP events appear. Some high-value jackpot winners get assigned personal casino hosts whose entire job is maintaining the relationship and encouraging return visits. Player tracking systems flag jackpot winners for extended monitoring periods. According to former casino surveillance and player development staff, some major casino corporations track and actively market to jackpot winners for 5 years or longer after their win. The marketing budget allocated to jackpot winners is substantially higher than that allocated to regular players because the expected return on that marketing investment is higher. Former revenue analysts report that casinos calculate customer lifetime value differently for jackpot winners, using predictive models that account for the psychological impact of having won before. There's a specific case that demonstrates exactly how aggressive this targeting becomes. A woman won an $18,000 jackpot at a regional casino in Louisiana in 2015. According to her own account shared with a former casino host, she began receiving weekly promotional mailers within a month of her win. The offers were substantial: $100 in free play, complimentary hotel rooms, invitations to special events. She returned to the casino monthly through 2016 and 2017, always using the free play offers but inevitably gambling beyond those amounts. By 2020, she was still receiving weekly promotional mailers from that casino, 5 years after her initial jackpot win. Over those 5 years, according to her player tracking data that the former host had access to, she had returned approximately $68,000 in gaming losses to the casino, nearly 4 times what she had initially won. The mathematical calculation casinos perform is brutally simple. If they spend $12,000 over 2 years in free play, room comps, and promotional offers to bring back a jackpot winner who then loses $85,000 during return visits, that's a $73,000 net profit generated by the initial targeting campaign. Former casino marketing directors report that these calculations are performed quarterly for every significant jackpot winner, and players who respond positively to offers receive even more aggressive targeting. The system is entirely circular. Winning a jackpot makes you a target, responding to marketing makes you a bigger target, and the cycle continues until you either stop responding or exhaust your gambling capital. Some casino corporations share jackpot winner information across their multiple properties. According to former data managers, if you hit a significant jackpot at one casino in a corporate chain, other properties in that chain gain access to your information and may begin targeting you with promotions, even though you've never visited their specific location. This inter-property data sharing is legal under the privacy policies players agree to when signing up for player tracking cards. But most winners have no idea their information is being distributed across an entire casino network. And speaking of targeting vulnerable players, what casinos do with near-miss jackpot programming represents one of the most psychologically manipulative aspects of modern slot machine design, something that former game designers admit was deliberately engineered to exploit human psychology in ways that probably shouldn't be legal. And Act 5, Revelation number 9. Near-miss jackpots are programmed to appear significantly more frequently than actual jackpots. And according to former slot technicians, this programming represents one of the most psychologically manipulative aspects of modern casino gaming. The practice is entirely legal under current gaming regulations, but what former game designers reveal about how these near misses are engineered shows a level of deliberate psychological exploitation that even some industry insiders describe as ethically questionable. Here's how the technical programming actually works according to former slot technicians who maintained these machines for years. Modern video slot machines use what's called weighted real programming, where different symbol positions have different probabilities of appearing. The jackpot symbols themselves are programmed to land on the pay line at the frequency that matches the PAR sheet specifications, maybe once every 500,000 spins for a major progressive. But those same jackpot symbols are programmed to appear in positions immediately adjacent to the pay line, either one position above or one position below, at dramatically higher frequencies. According to documentation that former technicians have described, some machines display near-miss jackpot configurations 40 to 60 times more frequently than actual jackpot wins. What makes this particularly manipulative is that these near misses serve absolutely no functional purpose except psychological manipulation. The RNG has already determined you lost. The near miss visual doesn't indicate you came close to winning. It's pure theater, A deliberately programmed illusion designed to make you believe the jackpot is more attainable than mathematics indicate. Former game designers who worked for major slot manufacturers admit this openly. In internal development meetings, according to a former designer who worked in the industry for 12 years, teams would test different near-miss frequencies to determine optimal rates for player retention. They'd run focus groups, analyze play duration data, and specifically calibrate how often players saw jackpot symbols just off the pay line to maximize the perception of almost winning without triggering frustration that would drive players away from the machine. The psychological research behind why near misses work is something casinos understand intimately. Neuroscience studies have documented that near-miss outcomes trigger dopamine release in the brain similar to actual wins, even though near misses are objectively losses. Your brain interprets seeing those jackpot symbols adjacent to the pay line it is evidence that you almost won, that you were close, that the next spin might be the one. This neurological response makes near misses more effective at encouraging continued play than complete misses where losing symbols appear nowhere near the pay line. Former casino training managers report that floor staff are instructed never to explain near-miss programming to players who mention almost winning, instead responding with encouraging statements that validate the player's interpretation that they came close. There's a documented case that demonstrates exactly how devastating this psychological manipulation can be. A regular player named Tom, according to a former casino floor manager who knew him well, became convinced that a particular machine was ready to pay its grand jackpot because he kept seeing the jackpot symbols appear just above the pay line. Over 3 months, he documented 200 extended playing sessions on that specific machine, recording every instance where jackpot symbols appeared in near-miss configurations. He experienced 7 near-miss jackpots during those 200 sessions, where all the jackpot symbols appeared on screen but just one position off the pay line. He interpreted this as statistical evidence that the machine was approaching a payout cycle. What he didn't understand, because casinos never explained it and regulatory signage never clarified it, was that those 7 near misses were programmed to appear at that frequency regardless of when the actual jackpot would hit. The machine could have been programmed to hit its jackpot on the very next spin or not for another million spins, and those near-miss frequencies would remain exactly the same. The near misses contain zero predictive information about jackpot timing, but they successfully kept Tom playing and spending for 3 months. The regulatory framework that allows this practice reveals how gaming regulations often protect casino interests more than player interests. Gaming commissions in most jurisdictions require that actual jackpot odds be disclosed somewhere in the machine's programming information, usually accessible through help screens that most players never view. But there's no requirement that casinos disclose near-miss programming frequencies or explain that adjacent symbol appearances are weighted differently than payline appearances. As long as the actual jackpot probability matches the disclosed specifications, everything else about symbol placement and visual presentation is considered acceptable game design rather than manipulation. Former compliance officers acknowledge that this regulatory gap effectively gives manufacturers and casinos carte blanche to program whatever visual illusions they want, as long as the core mathematical model remains accurate. Casino employee training explicitly addresses how staff should respond when players mention near misses. According to training manuals that former managers have described, employees are taught to acknowledge the player's observation without providing technical explanation. If a player says they keep seeing the jackpot symbols just off the line and asks if that means they're getting close, the trained response is something like, "You never know when it might hit," or "Those symbols showing up is always exciting," responses that validate the player's hope without providing information about weighted programming. Former floor supervisors report being explicitly instructed never to use terms like weighted reels or near-miss programming in conversations with players, even when directly asked about how symbol placement works. And if near-miss programming represents psychological manipulation, what casinos do with jackpot celebrations reveals another layer of deliberate strategy designed to influence player behavior across the entire gaming floor. Because according to former casino operations managers, every aspect of how jackpots are celebrated is carefully choreographed to maximize its marketing impact on other players. Revelation number 10. Casinos use elaborate jackpot celebration protocols, not to honor winners, but to create visible spectacles that psychologically influence surrounding players to gamble more aggressively. Every bell, every flashing light, every staff member who rushes to congratulate a winner, every photographer who appears to document the moment. These are elements of a calculated marketing strategy. In internal casino operations manuals that former managers have described explicitly outline these celebration protocols with specific timing requirements and visibility objectives. When a significant jackpot hits, particularly during peak hours, former floor managers report following specific procedures designed to maximize attention. Staff members are trained to gather around the winning machine, creating a crowd that draws other players' attention. Bells and sirens sound not just at the winning machine, but often throughout the surrounding area. Some casino floors have lighting systems that can highlight jackpot areas, making them visible from across the entire gaming space. According to former operations directors, these celebration elements are explicitly discussed in management training as player acquisition and retention tools, not as genuine celebration of player success. The psychological impact on surrounding players is exactly what casinos intend. Behavioral research that casinos have commissioned and studied shows that witnessing another player's jackpot win increases betting intensity among nearby players by 20 to 35% for approximately the following hour. Documentation from former marketing directors indicates that jackpot celebrations can increase overall floor-wide revenue by 8 to 12% during the hour following a significant win. The visible success of one player creates emotional responses in observers, specifically FOMO, the fear of missing out, and optimism bias, the belief that if jackpots are hitting nearby, your own chances must be elevated even though mathematically each machine's odds remain completely independent. There's a specific case that illustrates exactly how effectively this celebration strategy manipulates player behavior. A woman playing penny slots near the casino's main entrance witnessed an elaborate celebration when another player won a $1,200 jackpot about 30 feet away. According to a former slot host who later spoke with her, she immediately felt compelled to increase her own betting, moving from penny denomination to dollar denomination and raising her bet per spin from 40 cents to $5. She believed, as she later explained to the host, that seeing a jackpot win nearby meant the machines in that area were paying out, that it was a lucky section of the floor. Over 90 minutes following that jackpot celebration, she lost $2,000, more than she had ever lost in a single session before. The mathematical reality was that the nearby jackpot had absolutely zero relationship to her machine's programming or probability, but the celebration had successfully triggered an emotional response that overrode her usual caution. Former casino employees report being trained to manufacture excitement levels that match strategic objectives rather than actual win significance. An $800 jackpot might receive the same celebration protocol as an $8,000 jackpot if it occurs in a high-traffic area during peak hours. According to former floor supervisors, the celebration intensity is calibrated based on marketing value, not win amount. Staff members are trained to applaud, congratulate loudly, and create spectacle regardless of whether the win represents life-changing money or a minor payout that barely exceeds what the player has already lost during their session. Some casinos strategically place machines with higher small jackpot frequencies in maximum visibility locations specifically to create regular celebration opportunities. According to former slot operations planners, machines that hit $1,200 fixed jackpots once or twice daily might be positioned near main entrances, restaurant pathways, or other high-traffic areas where celebrations will be witnessed by maximum numbers of players. The machines aren't positioned there because those locations are premium gaming spaces. They're positioned there because regular visible jackpots in those locations serve marketing purposes that justify whatever slight reduction in optimal space utilization might result. Training manuals for jackpot celebration protocols include specific minimum time requirements, according to former casino training managers. A jackpot celebration must last at least 5 minutes, with staff maintaining visible presence around the winner. even if actual payment processing could be completed faster. This extended timeline ensures maximum visibility and maximum opportunity for surrounding players to notice and be influenced by the celebration. Some casinos have implemented photography policies where every jackpot over $1,000 receives commemorative photos. Not because winners universally want photos, but because the photography process extends celebration duration and increases visibility. Former employees who worked in multiple casino markets report that brick-and-mortar casinos emphasize jackpot celebrations far more than online casinos can, and this represents a deliberate competitive advantage. Online platforms can't create the social proof and environmental excitement of a casino floor celebration. Physical casinos exploit this advantage systematically, using every jackpot as an opportunity to influence the emotions and behaviors of dozens or hundreds of other players who witness the spectacle. Now that you know all 10 ways casinos manipulate jackpots and jackpot perceptions, let me explain what this information really means for anyone who gambles. Here's the ultimate truth that changes everything you thought you understood about casino jackpots. The jackpots casinos advertise, the massive progressive pools climbing into millions of dollars, the celebration bells and flashing lights, none of that money comes from the casino. Every single dollar in every jackpot pool was funded by players who came before you, and understanding this fundamental reality should completely transform how you think about chasing these prizes. According to a former casino chief financial officer who managed accounting for a major Las Vegas corporation, jackpot pools exist in a completely separate accounting category from casino operational funds. These pools are player-funded liabilities, not casino assets, and the distinction matters more than most gamblers ever realize. Here's the mathematical breakdown that former casino accountants want players to understand. When you sit down at a progressive slot machine and wager $3 per spin, that $3 gets divided according to precise program percentages. Approximately 85 to 91% returns to players through regular wins and bonus features. Between 8 and 12% goes directly to the casino as profit, their hold percentage that pays for operations, employees, facilities, and shareholder returns. The remaining 1 to 3%, sometimes as high as 5% on certain progressives, feeds into the jackpot pool. That means the $5 million megabucks jackpot currently displayed didn't come from casino coffers. It came from the collective losses of every player who fed money into that linked network over months or years, each contributing tiny percentages of their wagers until the pool reached its current size. A former casino accountant who worked in financial reporting for 8 years explained this dynamic with brutal clarity. When someone wins $1 million progressive jackpot, the casino doesn't lose $1 million. The casino has already collected its whole percentage on every dollar that built that progressive pool. The jackpot payout comes from a segregated fund that was always designated for that purpose, built entirely from player contributions. The casino's actual cost is administrative, the processing fees, the tax reporting, the celebratory expenses. The jackpot itself represents money that was already lost by other players, now being redistributed to one winner. You're not competing against the casino when you chase a progressive. You're competing against every other player funding that same pool, hoping to be the statistical outlier who recovers a tiny fraction of the collective losses. Former casino financial managers describe how jackpot pools appear on corporate accounting statements as liabilities specifically because the money doesn't belong to the casino. It belongs to the pool, owed to whoever eventually triggers the winning combination. This accounting reality reveals something most players never consider. The casino is completely indifferent to whether you win the jackpot because they're not losing their money when you do. They've already extracted their profit percentage from every wager that built that pool. Your jackpot win is functionally a transfer of money from previous players to you, with the casino serving as administrator of that transfer and taking their cut throughout the process. There's a specific example that makes this devastatingly clear. A man who spent 5 years chasing a major progressive, according to a former slot host who knew him well, calculated that he'd personally contributed approximately $4,000 to various progressive pools over that time period through the small percentage taken from each of his wagers. His largest progressive win during those 5 years was $212. He was contributing to pools that paid out to other players while receiving virtually nothing back himself. This is the mathematical reality for the vast majority of progressive players. You're funding jackpots that other people win, contributing your percentage to pools you'll never collect from, participating in what is functionally a lottery system with worse odds than actual state lotteries. The comparison to lottery systems is something former casino mathematicians emphasize specifically. When you play Powerball, you understand you're participating in a pooled game where ticket sales fund the jackpot and one winner collects the accumulated pool. Most players understand this dynamic with lotteries. Those same players somehow fail to recognize that progressive slot machines operate on identical principles with worse mathematics. A $3 Powerball ticket gives you defined odds for multiple prize tiers. $3 in a progressive slot machine gives you worse odds for the major jackpot, minimal odds for mid-tier prizes, and a guarantee that 85 to 90% of your money returns through small wins that feel like action but represent steady statistical loss. Former casino executives acknowledge privately that progressive jackpots exist primarily as marketing tools rather than genuine player value propositions. The visible jackpot counter serves to attract players and justify lower return-to-player percentages on the base game. According to internal casino strategy documents that former directors have described, progressives increase time on device, meaning players stay at machines longer when chasing advertised jackpots. They increase total amount wagered because players convince themselves that continued play brings them closer to a jackpot that is, mathematically, exactly as distant on spin 5,000 as it was on spin 1. The casino profits from every spin through their whole percentage, completely independent of whether the jackpot ever hits. A former slot director stated explicitly that if he were a player rather than a casino employee, he would never touch a progressive machine. The mathematics are indefensible from a player value perspective. Every dollar allocated to the progressive pool is a dollar with extraordinarily low probability of returning to you, making the effective return-to-player percentage worse than almost any other slot category. If your goal is entertainment value per dollar wagered, high RTP standard slots provide better value. If your goal is actually winning money, you shouldn't be in a casino at all because every game is mathematically designed to extract money over time. Now you understand what former casino insiders know. Jackpots are determined instantly by RNG, making real spin timing completely irrelevant. Most advertised jackpots are just fixed prizes with marketing language. Hit frequencies are predetermined and programmed, making machines never due to hit. Progressives can be reset legally without anyone winning. Must hit by progressives are exploitable but rigged against casual players. Wide area progressive odds are worse than lottery odds. Payment delays are strategic manipulation to encourage gambling back winnings. Winners get tracked and targeted for years. Near misses are programmed psychological manipulation. Celebrations are manufactured marketing spectacles. And every jackpot is funded by player losses, not casino money. This knowledge comes from former employees who spent years watching players chase jackpots without understanding these realities. They wanted this information public because they believed players deserved to know how these systems actually work. If this information changes how you think about gambling, that's exactly what it should do. Casinos are entertainment businesses designed to profit, and jackpots are sophisticated marketing tools engineered to maximize that profit. Subscribe to this channel if you want more insider information about how casinos really operate. Let me know in the comments. Which revelation shocked you most? Did you know near-miss programming was deliberately engineered? In my next video, I'll expose the specific slot machines with the worst jackpot odds, the game's former employees say they would never play with their own money. You now have information casinos spent decades making sure players didn't understand. What you do with that knowledge is your choice.